Hello and welcome everyone to this week's episode of the podcast. This week I am joined by the wonderful Anna Campbell, who many of you guys will know by now. And we are going to be talking about, well, it's a little bit scary, but don't worry, it's not going to be scary because I'm going to mention the C word, which is Christmas. And it is 16 weeks now until Christmas at the time of recording this. So that's a little bit, scary. But the good news is it's a really manageable amount of time for us to look forward at, to be planning around, and to think about what we're going to be doing in our jewelry businesses. So in this podcast, we're going to kind of break down how to manage overwhelm around that, but also what we need to really be focusing on each week and each month in the build up to Christmas so that we can have the most successful Christmas sale season possible in our jewelry businesses. And we are aiming for profitable sales, and we are aiming for a nice, smooth and steady progress so that you are calm and relaxed and enjoying the process. And some of you guys have done lots of Christmases before, and for some of you guys, this will be your first Christmas. So either way, it's kind of the same thing. We kind of do the same thing each year. So me and Anna are going to be having a chat around that and just helping to encourage you as people are going back to school and kind of back into a new academic year, around setting some nice goals for yourself, around having a nice strategy and a nice structure of what we're going to be doing. We're also going to look at what we're not going to be doing at different times so that you're not doing everything all the time. And I encourage you to kind of listen along, maybe take some notes because it's quite a kind of technical date-based session, and edit it for your business. If you're listening to something and you think, well, mine doesn't work that way, that's fine. You can make adjustments, but it's a really nice template to start from. So welcome, Anna. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, I think this is such an important topic around this time because I think there's a real excitement around. I mean, I know it's a kind of English schools go back in September and not everyone's exactly the same, but it does feel like a new year, doesn't it? And it's almost like a kind of a second January almost because the schools start now. But it can be overwhelming. I've been talking to jewelers over the last couple of weeks and people are like, there's just so much to do. And I think that this podcast has come at exactly the right time because I think what's so important is that there is a lot to do, but we don't need to do it all at once. I think that's going to be our main message, isn't it, today?
Absolutely, one thing at a time. And I always talk about the same mantra, but it's helped me so much in my life and in my business. It's just one thing each day. So today, if all you do is listen to this podcast, make some notes and have a plan, you've done it. You've done today, and then tomorrow will be something else. And sometimes we get more done, but it's not that we need to frantically run around and do everything, because that's how we get burnt out. After a week, a month, a year of that, we won't want to do anything. We'll need to have a massive break, and that can be really counterproductive. So it's that kind of slow and steady wins the race, but we can chip away at things and make huge progress in the quarter ahead. So coming back to our 16 weeks, it's not even really 16 weeks. So it's 16 weeks until like Christmas Day, but most jewelers will stop selling about 2 weeks before that. So we're looking at closer to sort of 14 weeks. And I've broken it down into just very simply sort of 4 weeks in September, 4 weeks in October, 4 weeks in November, and 2 weeks in December. So we can start to look at it as almost kind of months. It's kind of like 3.5 months, which I think sometimes can feel like that's not enough time, but it's also good to have a deadline and to know that after that, it's good to have a little bit of a break, a little bit of a pause and a change of what's happening in your business, different season. Also, it's always good to say in advance, probably for at least 1 week, you'll be taken out with something, whether it's the holiday, illness, family, life. So just normalizing that, in a quarter, it's normal that you won't be productive all the time, and that's okay, but we'll make the most of the time that you can be. So we're going to start with September because that's where we are. And I always think, like you said, Anna, September's such a lovely month because it's like a new year. And I think it's better than January in some ways, because January can feel like a lot of pressure, whereas September's like a mini year. It's like just from now until Christmas, what are we going to do? And it's kind of that new academic year. So people are looking forward and they're looking at growth and they're looking at what they're going to do going into autumn and winter, and it's just got a slightly different vibe to it. And hopefully you had a rest or a break or a change over the summer, something different to be coming back from. So September is what I call the preparation month or the warm-up month. And it's about preparing your business for the Christmas sales season. And it's also about warming up your customers. So we're going to talk about the things to do, but also the things not to do. And maybe I'll start with the things not to do. September is not a time when you need to go really hard with your marketing. So it's a warm up marketing month. We are going to go hard with our marketing at some point, but this month isn't the time. This is more kind of just posting things that you want to post on social media, sending out maybe one or two newsletters, just saying like, what's happening in your business, what you're up to, that you're back at the bench, or whatever's kind of going on for you. And just sort of chatting to people. It's not a hard sales season. And so it's quite a nice time because you're just sort of talking to people, engaging, connecting, trying to build those relationships. But the things that we do want to get started with this month are, we want to make sure our jewelry is together. So if you're selling, say, a collection this Christmas, you want to make sure you've made that collection and or you're making it. Because one of the things we're going to talk about as we go through is that we don't want to be making every single week from now until Christmas, because we need time, especially in November, which is really the sales season, to sell. Selling takes time. It means talking to people, it means posting on social media, it means potentially going to markets, all things that you can't do while you're making at the same time. So we want to kind of put in our minds that we're not going to be making much jewelry in November and December. Now, obviously, if you're working on commissions, it might be slightly different, but generally speaking, you want to be making a lot less towards the end of October, all through November and December, which means now, and really before now, but you can add that in for next year if you haven't already, we want to have our jewelry kind of in order. The next thing is photography. Maybe Anna, you could have a little chat about photography and packaging. They kind of go hand in hand because these are things we want to get looking at as well in September.
Yeah, it's all about that preparation, isn't it? And I think when it comes to September, that's what this month is about. So it is about getting the jewelry ready. I was talking to someone who was saying, "Oh, I really wanted to design some new work, but I've just not had time." And it's kind of like, well, now maybe is not the time to design like new collections because you may not really have time. It's probably good to just consolidate what you've got and just, make multiples. As you say, it depends a little bit on your business model, doesn't it, as to what you do. But now isn't necessarily the time to start experimenting with new ideas and new thoughts because you just really don't have the time to do that. And I think sometimes we can feel like it's like, oh, I need something new to share. I need something new to share. But actually, what people who are following you will probably know you for is what you already have. And so yes, it's lovely to make new jewelry, and maybe like January, February, March, that's kind of earmark that time for that, because I think now is the time of just getting ready for that Christmas season. So yes, photography and packaging, just I suppose it's kind of all getting your ducks in a row, isn't it, a little bit? It's kind of like just feeling very confident that when it comes to October, November, when you've got more of that selling going on, that you've got your packaging ready. All you have to do is just put it together and get it out there. Photography is just so important now, I think. And even if you do sell mostly face to face, in craft fairs and things, I still feel like it's such an important thing for be sharing on your socials. And if you mostly sell online, of course, your photography is really, really key. So if you're doing your photography yourself, great. Kind of book yourself in a couple of days for a session. I think the thing with photography is that in some ways, the thing that takes the time is kind of getting the setup right and the lighting right. And once you've done that, you can kind of blast through it a little bit. But sometimes that bit takes the time and it's a little bit frustrating because you're like, oh, it's not quite right. It's not quite right. And if you are using a photographer for your Christmas photos, make sure you're getting that booked in now because they're going to start to get really busy and you may end up missing out. So, if you've got things ready to send to a photographer like now, brilliant. Get that done because I think, yeah, they're going to get very busy soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you with the, like starting and experimenting with a new collection, probably not the best time. And I like what you said as well about, what you have is enough. the things that you have are that's what people want to buy from you, and you can always judge it up a little bit. You've got a little bit of
Yeah.
time in September to do some making, so it might be that you've got an old collection and you're feeling a bit like, oh, I want something fresh to share. Maybe just make another one or two pieces that are in that collection but that excite you and maybe are slightly different in some way, because I think Anna's right in that your customers are happy with whatever you share because for them it's pretty much always new. But I do understand also that wanting something new to share, and I think that helps you with your marketing. So sometimes just adding a little refresh to something can help us feel like, okay, I've got something that I'm excited about, because that can really help. So yeah, kind of the last making, like real making month is this month, I would say.
I think you can also add to your photography as well. Like sometimes it's like maybe you've got a collection and you've got some things to share, but perhaps it's about doing a Christmassy themed photo shoot or just having some new photos of those pieces to share. I think that can kind of just refresh things a little bit too. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, oh, I've got to not throw all of that out, but you know what I mean? Like do something completely new. This isn't necessarily the time for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you've been struggling with your photographs, now September's a really good time to improve them. We have some stuff coming up for that actually. So stand by, listen up for next week's podcast, because we're going to be doing some photography together as a community. We always kind of have in our mind that this time of year is like photography time, because we want to, like Anna said, probably take a few shoots or a few shots of Christmassy themed things, whatever that looks like to you. It can be very minimalist or it can be more full on, but just to kind of get into the season and the spirit. Because when it does come to November and December and you're really kind of pushing harder for those sales, it's nice to have something seasonal that you can share, not just the things that you're sharing all year round. And also, when you're doing a photography, have a think about videography as well, because obviously things have moved more towards that way. So yeah, when we say photography, it can also be pre-preparing content for reels. If you're making through September and you're not going to be making later on in the season, then take lots of behind the scenes stuff, maybe some work in progress, some showing something being made step by step. You don't need to put it together in a reel at the moment, but you can just be sort of collating that content. So when we do come to the marketing months, you've got collateral to work with. We want images, we want videos, things that could be used for stills, things that could be used on your website, even just anything that you can get. The more you can get, the better, because then you've got things to kind of work with. So again, just keeping in mind, it's warm up month, it's preparation month. What can I do to prepare myself and my business and my customers for what is coming? I do think it's a good idea to send at least one email to your list this month. And if you don't have a list, get going with a list and send them an email, even if it's just 10 people on your list or whatever, and pick a theme. Pick something you'd like to share about. If you know what jewelry you're going to be selling for the Christmas sales season, we think of this as a launch, really, and we always encourage people in a launch to have a theme of some sort. And it could be to do with your jewelry, it could be that your jewelry is all about like stars and celestial themes, or it could be to do with nature and very organic things, or it could be something to do with your values as a business owner, and that this year is all about gifting handmade. It doesn't need to be super original, it doesn't need to be something that's never been shared before. It could be that you work in fair trade gold and that's one of the main themes that you want to talk about, but picking at least one theme and maybe a couple of sub themes as well for your content is going to be really helpful, because it means when you come to do your marketing, you're not just thinking, what do I share? You're sharing around a theme. So it kind of brings things together a bit like a collection has a thread that runs through. We want a launch to have a thread that runs through. So we've got those kind of similar themes coming back again and again. So send a newsletter, send an email of some sort to your list, sharing maybe what you're making, sharing something around your values, just connecting with them, because we're going to be sending a lot more as time goes on. So it's good if it just doesn't come out of the blue. And so, yeah, finally, I would say in September, we're starting to bring our marketing focus more to shorter term content, things like Reels, like Instagram posts, like newsletters, rather than longer term content, which are things like blogs or if you do like YouTubing or podcasting. Those things are all great as well. But because we're now looking at a launch period, which is a shorter period of time, we're not looking at necessarily growing the business in the long term, although obviously all of it will help to grow the business in the long term. But like Anna said, when it's sort of January, February, March, even April, May, June, we're looking at more long-term content and stuff that's just going to generally build. We're now focusing a bit more on the here and now because people are starting to think, oh, I need to buy something now. So I think they're all the things for September. I don't know if you had any more thoughts on those, Anna, before we move.
I guess the only other thing to say, and I think what you were talking about around just sharing that short content and email, um, I think the people that are interested in shopping local, buying handmade, they're interested in your story and who you are and supporting you as a maker. And I think it's kind of a good way of to remember, because I think sometimes we can feel like, well, who wants to know about me doing this or going on the school run, or I don't know, whatever it is we're thinking about sharing. But actually, when we connect, I think we're seeing so much more of this kind of AI content and this more generic content. And actually, what people really want is real human connection. And they want to be able to say, oh, I bought this gift for you, and it was made by a maker who is based in somewhere, who is inspired by something that you're also inspired by. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's, if it's ocean inspired jewelry, maybe you talk a little bit about world swimming, or it's just like, what are the kinds of things that are going to connect you to those people who are like, oh yes, these are my people. And it's about sharing those things and feeling that that's the right thing to do. Because people who want to buy from the high street and buy jewelry from wherever, they're going to do that, but there's a core of people, and it's growing, yay, who are wanting to have more of a connection, more handmade, more supporting local makers and just makers generally. So I think this is your opportunity to just share whatever you're happy with, but share a little bit about who you are as a person, what inspires you, and it's kind of growing that connection that you can have with those potential customers.
Yeah, absolutely. A great reminder. I love that. And it is that connection that we all want because it's so much nicer, isn't it, to see like a local handmade jeweler and their story and what they're making versus, yeah, AI, which is just totally random, made up
Yeah,
stuff.
these big brands who need to pay for like influencers or pay for people to be a face of their brand because they don't have one because they're like a big corporation,
Mm.
and that's fine, that's what they do, but we don't need that because there's already us behind it, and we're inspired and we love jewelry making, and that's why we're doing it in the first place. So it's great to share all of that.
Yeah, I think also I was having a chat with a jeweler the other day about other jewelers interacting with them on social media and things like that. And I think, it's great to interact with other makers. Sometimes we can feel like, oh, but they won't buy from us. And first of all, that's not necessarily true. Makers definitely buy from makers. Even jewelers buy from jewelers. So I think don't discount the inner community. But also the other thing I would say is a lot of people who will buy from you won't necessarily comment on anything that you do or interact with anything that you do.
True.
Because a lot of people are just on social media to look at stuff, especially people that buy. Often they're just to kind of look and see, and it's almost like more of a magazine experience for them, like looking through it, and then they'll go ahead and buy. But seeing that other people have commented, even if they're other jewelers or other makers, helps people who do want to buy have confidence in your brand because they're like, oh, there's someone, they're talking to people, there's interaction, there's interest here. So please don't feel disheartened if you feel like everything you're putting out is just other makers, and trust that that is helping to build social proof, to build trust, to build connection with people who will be your customers as well. I mean, gemstone sellers, maybe not, maybe not so helpful, but genuine kind of conversations and connections on social media with, don't discount anybody because you never know who their network is, like who else is looking. I know sometimes we'll put out like especially more salesy posts and feel like, oh, nobody saw that. But it's just that nobody interacted because the people that are interested have gone to the website and they're thinking about buying it or they're buying it. So the sales posts will often be less viral, often get less interaction. It doesn't mean that they're not really important and worthy. And we'll come more to that in the coming months that we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, and I want to just come back to that thing about other makers or other jewelers, because I know for a fact if somebody came to me and said, "Could you make me X?" and it's not my thing, it's not my style of making, I would look at like, okay, who do I know in my network that I would recommend for that? So as you say, it is still important. I certainly buy jewelry from other jewelers, that the kind of jewelry that I wouldn't make myself. And I know you do as well, Jess. So I think like you say, I think sometimes people, you're right, people do feel like, oh, I'm not necessarily getting the word out further, but actually just keep going. I think don't feel disheartened, because you, like you say, you never really know what that network means or can mean for you in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. All right, so we got past September. Whoop whoop. And we're moving on to October. So October is really where your online promotion kind of starts. And for me, the first couple of weeks start with making sure everything's up to date. So looking at the website, uploading any of those new photos that you've taken and new pieces that you've made. So kind of building the infrastructure there, especially if you're doing online sales. But even if you're not doing online sales and it's a portfolio site, early October is a really good time to get all your information up there. So things like updating banners with something more festive so that customers come and they know that you're ready for the festive season. If you've got any offers or any promotions or anything like that, starting to kind of get those into play, making sure that you've got your pop-up or whatever you use to get people to sign up to your mailing list is all sorted on your website as well. So those of you that have a website and it's going pretty well, it's just updating and refreshing things. Is there like a gift guide? That might be something that you could add on or create. Is there, I know for some websites, people have things like gifts under a certain price point or at a certain price point. Again, it depends what kind of business you have, whether or not that would be appropriate. Making sure you've got bestseller columns, that your jewelry is all categorized in a way where I can easily kind of go through and find the thing that I want. So really just looking at the user journey, your customer's journey and experience. When they click on the website, can they easily check out? And just, even if you think, yes, I know they can, just double checking it all. Does the payment system work? Is everything definitely in order? Are there any bits where you might lose people? So this is a really good time of year to give your website a little, not a complete overhaul, just a little refresh, little tweaks, little changes here and there before we're trying to build and send lots of traffic there later on in October and November. Any shop updates, any dates that are important, like when is your last shipping date for Christmas for different countries? Do you have any fairs or events that you can promote on the website? Get those dates up there. Any information that I need to know as a customer about when and how I can order your stuff in the run up to Christmas, get all those dates up there. So you're kind of just doing that website update, fresh images if there are any little video clips that you might have taken, they can be added as well, and making sure that that's all kind of in place. So that would be my early October plan. And then I think really the goal for October is to announce what you're selling over Christmas. So September, you kind of been talking about it, things are coming, you've been chatting, and now you're like, right, this is the menu. This is what is on offer. This is the collection, or these are the commissions. Now, those of you that only have a commission-based business, you need to do everything a little bit earlier because things take a longer time and you'll get booked up. So I'm talking more to people with collections, but if you have a commission-based business, it's very similar. It's just that the timeline is a little bit earlier. So really want to be getting commissions in through September and October, because come November, it's probably going to be getting a bit tight, and you want them all shipped out ready. And it also depends what kind of commissions you do and how long they're going to take. Like if you're working in wax, it could take a month to 2 months to get something out to people. So bespoke pieces. But for your collection kind of pieces that you've got ready to ship, October, we just want to be announcing this is it, guys. This is the collection. Go for it. So it's like the early launch. And we often notice with any kind of early launch, some people will go straight away, but other people will need time to think about it. They'll need to look at the stuff. They'll need to weigh it up with other options. They'll need time to become interested. And this is where we start a really more intense period of selling, which goes through November. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on those bits, Anna, of like the website updates and announcing the menu that is on offer for our jewelry this year.
I think you're right. I think we need to make sure that everything is super clear because, like you said, somebody might be thinking about buying and then be like, okay, there's not this information, or, and they may not follow up and ask you. You might just lose them. So I think making sure you've got everything listed on there that they might possibly ask on your product descriptions is a really important, and that you've got sizes on there, and everything is as clear as you can get it, and lots of photos. If you have, like you mentioned, some little videos, they really do help with sales. I'm not saying you have to do that, but if you have them, you may as well kind of have them and put them up on there. So I think what you want to do is just make sure that when people are wanting to buy, they feel confident about buying from you, and that it's easy, like you said. So it's really, really important to kind of do all of that checking, and making sure that's really up to date. So I think, like you say as well, if we're doing events, because sometimes people who are local will be like, oh, I just need to go and have a little look at this. I just want to try this, try this on or whatever. So it's great to be able to share any events that you're doing. And yeah, I think it's just a case of like, just be super clear. And maybe you want to get somebody else to just look over everything and just see if they got any questions. Is there something that you're not thinking about because you're so kind of close to it? So it can be good to get someone else to just proof it for you if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's easier than it sounds. Like sometimes it sounds really complex, all these things, but this could take a day, to just go through it all and sort of think, okay, is everything working? Is it a smooth transition? Do some of the links broken in my website? Do I need to update anything? And just kind of preparing it. And it's also quite a nice time. This isn't an essential thing, but it's quite a nice time to look at, have you got any reviews or any testimonials that you could start sharing? Because we're starting the real promotion period now. I'd say from like 2 weeks into October, the last 2 weeks of October, we really should be promoting. So for me, that means sharing on your socials every day or as much as you possibly can. Kind of regular emails, so at least every 2 weeks in October. So there should be at least 2 emails that go out in October. And these could be a bit more product focused. So things like, this is the collection, and then maybe following up with the best sellers, with a testimonial. So starting to really get ideas, or perhaps you're sending out a gift guide and saying, out of the collection, these are the ones that would work really well for a gift for this person or a gift for that person or whatever. You also, some jewelers do some collaborations this time of year and do some offers. Like if you order your piece by a certain deadline, you'll get a free ceramic dish I've seen someone do before, or jewelry roll which is made by like another handmade artist. So it's quite a nice time to think about doing little collaborations and offers. We try with offers not to discourage discounting, especially on your current collection, but instead to add value in other ways. So it's almost bonusing. So if you get this, you'll get something additional, rather than if you place an order, you'll get a percentage off. So generally we try and encourage that, especially with handmade jewelry, because too much discounting can really devalue the pieces. So regular emails, regular socials, ramping up, and just sharing your products. And don't worry if people don't interact loads. You're putting it out there. This is what I've been making. This is what I'm selling. This is what's available, and some strong kind of call to action. So really kind of starting to get going with those things. And of course, shipping stuff out when the orders come in. That takes time, and really kind of wrapping up the production side of things, wrapping up your making to get ready for November, which is the hardcore sales month where we don't really want to do anything other than selling and shipping. So that's the ideal. That's the dream. Um, Okay, I think we can move on to November now. So, November is what I call the sales month. So, this is the month where most people will buy from you if they're buying for Christmas. So, a few people will have got in early in September and October, perhaps, but most people, and some people will be late in December, but most people buying handmade gifts will be buying throughout November. So, this is really your opportunity to keep putting your jewelry in front of people. And me and Anna are always saying this, aren't we, Anna? People need to see your jewelry. It used to be 7 times. I think it's now closer to like 10 plus times before they can make a decision, which means we need to be a bit annoying in this period and just keep putting stuff out. And you guys will know from when we do like our diploma launches and stuff, there's a period where we're just messaging you all the time about it. And it's short and sweet, but it's important because, yes, for some people it's not the right thing, but for people who it is the right thing, they need the information and they need to see it regularly and they need to feel confident that it's going to be the right decision for them. So it's the same with your selling. This is the time where it's okay, you're given permission to annoy yourself and other people with talking about your jewelry too much, because for this month every year, that is our goal. So we're going to be sharing as much as you can on socials, if you can each day. We tend to do Monday to Friday, so it's sort of manageable. It doesn't have to be every single day, especially if you're doing reels and kind of high value content, you might spread it out, but do as much as you can. That's what I would say. Responding to comments, encouraging people to send you direct messages, building that engagement. We talk a lot actually in the Jewelry Business Academy around this time of year about how to manage sales, but the most important thing is connecting with people, sharing what you're doing, constantly sharing links, like this is where you buy it. I know it sounds really simple, but there's so many jewelers that I see on Instagram and even things that I want to buy, and I'm like, but how do I buy it? I see it, it's lovely, I see your website, but where's the add to cart, where's the buy now button? So this is a month where we're sort of saying it's here, buy it here. And don't just share your whole collection, spotlight each piece. Show us each piece individually, because you know your whole collection because you made it and you've shared it over the years, or months, or however long you've had it for. But when I'm new to your account, let's say I started following you last week, I don't know any of your pieces, so show me them. You can do some nice things, like on Instagram you can pin posts to the top and like a carousel of all your current pieces, for example, and where they can go and buy them from. So like Anna said, it's kind of thinking backwards in a way and thinking, how can I make this as clear as possible? And I remember someone saying in our jewelry classes, it's like sometimes when we're doing stuff online, we have to think, how would I explain this to a baby? And it sounds really patronizing, but actually when you're online, there's so much going on. There's so much distracting you. You've often got like another screen on, maybe some kids around, maybe your partner's asking you a question at the same time. There's a lot going on. So if it's really simple and like, oh, I like this is how I buy it, then we're making everyone's life a lot easier. So sales month. Yeah. Don't know if you have any thoughts on that one.
Yeah, I think I think what we have to remember is that although we know absolutely everything that we're putting out during this month, people are not seeing everything we're putting out, which is a shame, but that's how it is. And that's why we basically need to say the same thing over and over in different ways. And that is what we're doing. That is what November is. Like end of October to into November, like that 6 weeks basically is saying the same thing over and over in different ways. So it might be a reel, it might be a carousel, it might be a spotlight on rings, it might be a spotlight on earrings, it might be pieces under a certain price tag, find different ways to talk about the same things basically, and you might start to bore if what you need to basically be boring yourself. Okay, you need to be talking so much that you're like, because you will find it so interesting. I've been working on the marketing for Jewelers Academy and London Jewelry School before that for years and years and years, and there are so many times you feel like, oh, I've said this so many times, and then there are people who still don't hear it or have only just found it, or and that's just the way of things, and that's brilliant. That's great, that's exactly what we need. And so it isn't a case of just putting it out once and then that's it. I think that is what a lot of people make the mistake of doing, and thinking, well, that's that then, and I didn't make any sales. And I think we need to kind of keep finding the way of sharing sharing the same collections in different ways. You know, maybe it's around this was inspired by, like you were talking about before, this is inspired by this, you know, are you inspired by this as well? It's kind of, again, being able to kind of connect with people in those ways. I think the other thing that is really important at this stage, and I think a lot of people don't do, and that is kind of following up a little bit.
Mm.
So when people click on a link in one of your emails, if you use one of the like Flowdesk or MailChimp or something like that, you will be able to see like who has clicked on it, who is looking at those things. And you should send them an email and just say, you don't have to say, I saw you were looking at this, you know, because that
I'm
sounds a
creepy.
bit like dodgy, sounds a bit stalkery, but you know, you can send them a targeted email and you know, could put, hi Jess, you know, don't forget to, or take a look at this collection, or you know, what are you looking at the moment? Is it earrings? Is it rings? You know, you think of a way of kind of, it's almost like if you were in a shop and somebody was looking at, you know, if you had a shop and someone was looking at a particular display, you would talk to them and ask them like, what are you interested in, like what can I help you with? It's kind of like the online version of that, is contact them. The people who are liking your posts on Instagram or wherever you post, you can, you know, you can message them and just perhaps share, oh, I have a bonus at the moment, but the bonus is going to end on a certain date. You know, it's just, again, it's reminding them, but it's almost like that kind of personalized service.
Mm.
It's something that people don't do. We kind of just put it all out there and just think, okay,
Fingers
bye.
crossed. Fingers crossed.
And you know, you do get sales that way, but it's also a good thing to just kind of still do a little bit of follow up at these weeks particularly, I would say.
I think that's such an important point. Yeah, the follow up, and it can be nerve-wracking because I think you have to be a little bit tenacious and a little bit the opposite of humble. It helps to be the opposite of, you know, if you're just sort of like, oh, you know, I don't mind, don't worry, don't look at me, don't look at my work kind of thing, which is quite a British, can be quite a British thing, especially for makers. But it's almost like we need to, even if we feel that way, just put that aside and be like, right, this is my job, this is my business, and I care about it and I want it to grow. And what have I got to lose, really? You know, what's the worst that could happen? Because I think you're right. And sometimes it's really nice if somebody's commented or liked something. I'm a big fan of leaving voice notes. Because they only take a few seconds to do, and they're very personal, I think. So just say like, "Oh, thanks so much for liking that piece. I absolutely loved making it, and yeah, and if you need like any help or you want to see any other work, just let me know." It doesn't need to be a hard push, but it's just sort of saying, I'm here, I'm around, and you know, if you want some encouragement, it's fine. So I think those things are really important, and also,
I think remember, it's not cold selling as well. I mean, you're not just just randomly going out there and saying to every single person. It's about people who are already interested in you, they're already following you, they're already on your email list. You know, they've clicked on something, they're interested. And it's about just having those, like, back to that connection thing. It's about having those human connections. So I think that's why it is so important to do. And it's, yeah, like you say, it's your business, it's your baby, it's your creation. So you want to share with those people who are interested.
yeah, absolutely. And I think you want to get to the end of the season knowing you did everything you could. So it's not about, and for those of you that are new to this as well, even your first few years, because sometimes it can be, you know, slow to start with jewelry businesses, it's not about getting the sale that day. I mean, obviously, it's great if you get the sale that day, and that's the goal. But it's not really about that because they might think, oh, that's really nice. They left a message. Oh, I'm not ready to purchase yet. But then it could be next year that they come back and they've had you in mind for a year. So it's a long term, you know, jewelry is a trust-based purchase. It takes time to build the trust. So it's not, you don't feel disheartened if you put all this effort in and you don't get it back, because we want to put this effort in consistently, knowing that it will come back one way or another. Maybe not be the way that we think, and it may not be on our timeline, but it will all help. And for some of you, because it's just different for different businesses, it will just take off and it will be like, oh, all of those things are working and it's great. But we all have different journeys in our business, and it's okay if yours is a bit slower. It's okay if you have to put more effort in. It's the same for any area of life. Some things just happen a bit easier for some of us and some things don't. And it's not a reflection on you, it's just the luck of the draw. But applying these strategies and putting these things in place will leave you at the end knowing that you did everything that you could, and that next year you come back and do the same, you come back and do the same, and it works. It sometimes takes, sometimes it's quickly, sometimes it's slowly, but it works. So yeah, always going for that kind of connection. But November, I'm sorry to say, is sales month, and we need to sell all month as much as we can. um and I think, through November, also, I would recommend weekly emails, even if they're short and sweet. Spotlights on different products. Because you're going to be sharing a lot on socials, you're going to have a lot of content. And remember, in September, we took pictures, we did some reels, we built some collateral. So we're using all of that now. This is the time when we're using it, and getting creative with it and enjoying, hopefully, that side of our business too. What you don't need to do in November is make lots of jewelry. Hopefully your jewelry's all made by then, or at least most of it. You might have some little bits and pieces to do, especially if you're doing custom orders, or if you've got personalization to add or things like that. But generally speaking, it's marketing, sales month, and shipping, getting stuff to the post office, all those lovely orders. Brilliant. And then that brings us into December, which is your final 2 weeks. So December, there's not a lot of new things to say. It's just your final push. So you're probably tired by this point, and we'll talk about motivation in a moment. So it's just kind of keep going. And it may be that you ease off a bit in the marketing, but still keep the marketing. Because I find with the December, it's like people may have been looking at you all through November, and it's those last minute shoppers who are like, oh, I thought I had loads of time. So December is more about sharing the final deadlines. It's having a bit of fun with your marketing, because December's, it's kind of a light month. There's like Christmas parties and people are having a good time. And I would take the pressure off a bit then. Keep doing the email marketing. So final emails. This is the end of the launch. So it's always good to do a few emails right at the end. So let us know, like 3 days, for example, until orders closed for Christmas, 1 day until order closed for Christmas, today orders closed for Christmas. So those last 3 emails I'd recommend putting in, and you can obviously make them interesting and add content and stuff, but the main message is it's closing, it's closing, it's closed, so that people know. If you're doing things like gift vouchers, if you teach jewelry making classes, this is a really good time to share about gift vouchers as we're getting closer to kind of the actual Christmas sales period ending. And it's, just sort of wrapping things up, shipping out all those orders from November, and talking to people. So it's much of the same. So it's a lot, but it's not too much. It's definitely manageable, and it will all be over at some point. So try and enjoy it. Try and enjoy the conversations and the journey that you're having. You'll learn a lot about your business every year. No matter how long you've been doing it, there's always more to learn. But I think to avoid the overwhelm, break it down into these manageable kind of chunks. Don't try and do everything all at once. Give yourself time off if you need a day off, or every now and then just have a break, schedule in some nice things to recharge yourself. And think about how you're going to stay motivated. So obviously things like listening to the podcast, we'll be here to kind of encourage and motivate you in different ways, because it is, especially through like the October, November, December, can be quite a slog. At first it's fun and interesting, and then it's like, oh, I shared about this, for 21 days now, and I've got to keep sharing. So preempt that and think, okay, how can I get myself motivated? Do you need to go to some networking events and be around some other people and get some fresh energy? Do you need to just have some time with friends? Do you need podcasts? Do you need to do some exercise or move your body? Like, what is going to help you through that period to just kind of keep going? And remember, when it ends, take a break, take a proper break, and enjoy it.
Yeah, I think it's nice to have maybe something to look forward to as well, whether that is, I don't know, a spa day, or well, I'm just talking about the things I would like to do. But like, it could be just going somewhere new just for the day, like just something that would inspire you, and you kind of, it's almost like a little reward at the end, something that you can look forward to, because you're right, it can be a slog. I don't know if we call it that, but we need to kind of just keep going. We need to just keep on track. I think what can be great about Christmas though is, for jewelers particularly, is because there is a deadline. I think sometimes it can be difficult when we have collections that we have all year round. We need to find ways of adding bonuses and deadlines, and Christmas is a deadline, and everyone knows what the deadline is. So I think that really does is kind of like a natural deadline, as we've talked about before. And I think that can be helpful, because then well, you can feel like, well, I've done absolutely everything that I could do, and can let it go. And then if you celebrate Christmas, you can celebrate Christmas, or you can just take that time off and time away from your business for a little while, just to rest and recuperate and recover. Because I think that is one of the things that we do find is businesses like ours can be very seasonal, where we've got big busy periods, but then we can take the time and just pull back, and we can maybe start working on designs and the parts of the business that perhaps you enjoy the most.
That's something I love so much about jewelry businesses and small businesses in general, but particularly jewelry businesses, is there's just so many different things to explore. So you can explore all your making and all the creativity, and learning new techniques and trying new collections, and that's just one element. And you can also learn all about social media and how to make videos and how to take great pictures and how to represent things in a really juicy, exciting way. And then you can learn about how to work with other people and how to build connections. And I think trying to see every bit as equally as valuable, and that you get to do all these different things. Because I mean, a lot of jewelers say, I just want to make and I just want to make, but actually if you speak to like jobbing jewelers who just make every day for their whole lives, they're usually not that excited about making, because they've literally cleaned up 50 castings that week, and next week they've got to do it again. And so like, I think one of the things that's great about running these businesses is the diversity of tasks, that we're never doing exactly the same thing every single day. And so really, the grass can be greener, can't it? You think, oh, I just want this or I just want that, but actually I think it's the best of a lot of worlds. And if we can embrace that and say, okay, I'm marketing a lot now, but through January and February I'm going to chill out with my socials, I'm not going to do much on them, and I'm going to really have time to explore and make, then we can kind of look forward to the different elements of the business as well. So lots of things to look forward to. A new term, a fresh start, and we are here with you guys through it all. So we're excited, and and thank you for always tuning into the podcast as well. I know we have some really loyal listeners, and we absolutely love having you here. And if you haven't already, we'd absolutely love for you to leave a review on the podcast. It really helps to show it to more people, and just get kind of the message and the word out. But we absolutely love having these chats and kind of building some encouragement around what we're doing together as we go forward. And if you have any thoughts or ideas or things you'd like to share with us, both me and Anna, of course, are on social media, so you can drop us a message at Jewelers Academy. And Anna, for anyone who doesn't know, where can they find you online?
So it's Anna C. Campbell, on Instagram. Instagram's my main place.
The main bag, the main
The main place.
situation. Yeah. Brilliant. Well, best of luck. Thanks, Anna, for coming and sharing some of your thoughts and ideas around this today. Hopefully, we haven't scared you too much. It's 16 weeks till Christmas, but you have got this, and we are in it together. And we look forward to seeing you next week for another episode of the podcast. So until then, bye for now.